I'd like to talk about the addition of an entirely new settlement in Total War Warhammer 2, and those are the forts we've heard about recently. In this video, I'm going to talk about the mechanical aspect from what we've learned thus far, and I'm going to show off the map where these forts will be. From there, I'll explain the lore and significance of each location. That way, when you play the game with these forts, you'll understand that they're just more than a strategic defensive choke point. They have a history to them too. Forts are, by design, going to be more important and substantial than the gates on Ulthuan. Otherwise, I don't believe such an emphasis would be made about their addition. These three forts will finally provide some ease of defense at choke points that should theoretically be easier to hold if needed. Personally, I'm going to be curious about how underway using factions like the Skaven or Greenskins will interact with those locations, but if they were to move one army past you, they would still have to move back traditionally unless they wanted to be caught there with your armies close by. So that would still make it easier for you to catch them because they wouldn't be able to move after that. They would be caught there in their underway stance. So that'll still be quite good, even though they can bypass your fort initially. According to the Fort Fever blog that I've linked down below, they've made a concerted effort to add more emphasis to the areas inside the fort, as well as the wall itself. And quoting them, each new map will have different tiers and areas of engagement. This means you'll have potential lines of defense you can fall back to in case you lose the walls themselves, and later in that blog, they write about using the Empire's strengths, guns, and cavalry. And they wrote, this means that the maps need to have narrow corridors to act as kill boxes for ranged units, as well as large open areas, perfect for sweeping cavalry charges. If we look at the screenshots of their works in progress, that appears to be absolutely true. These look expansive, and if we upgrade them, I wonder if they will have any visual changes or if it's just a mechanical change to the garrison number and tower strength. There are 3 additional provinces we can make out from the map, and this is where the forts will logically be placed. The first one we're going to focus on is the northernmost fort, and it's called Disrobe Gap, which is wedged right between the Grey Mountains. To the west is the Dukedom of Disrobe, and generally they are in charge of keeping this area safe from orcs, beastmen, bandits, and other issues too. If we went by lore, Castle Disrobe stands at the center of the gap and belongs to the Marquis of the same name. It's a vital choke point as a number of traders come from the wasteland through the Disrobe Gap. But because this is an expansion centered around the Empire, the Bretonnians are not going to begin with control of this fort. Instead, it's likely to be MARIENBURG, because their importance has been elevated. Not only has the province of the Wasteland been expanded with additional locations, their leader is also considered to be one of the Elector Counts. This means that MARIENBURG now has a lot more staying power in the game, and would be able to potentially survive into a late game scenario, instead of just being swept aside by Chaos or the Bretonnians to the west. And because of the Elector Count system, you'll be able to potentially diplomatically integrate MARIENBURG into your own holdings. Some of you may be confused about why the leader of MARIENBURG is an Elector Count, so I'm going to talk about that briefly. Years ago in 501 of the Imperial calendar, the Jutunes tribe of the Jutsunrik, or Kingdom of Jutuns, is incorporated into the Empire as the Barony of Westerland during the reign of Sigismund II the Conqueror. It remained a part of the Empire until it succeeded during the reign of Emperor Dieter IV in 2429 through a massive bribe. And to clarify, a lot of the lore used here is from before there were only electors and not elector counts. You could be an elector with any title, like a baron, and runefangs weren't added in yet. So a lot of the lore here to incorporate this idea is from different eras of Warhammer lore and time periods as well. Later, in the Age of Three Emperors, which was a massive imperial civil war over in 1979 of the imperial calendar, many of the electors chose Countess Margrita of Marienburg as elected empress, which could have been from more bribes. The Great Theogenes refused to acknowledge her ascension, and that ended the line of elected emperors. Her claim was later passed on to her heirs until Count Paulus von der Macht died during the Great War against Chaos in 2302. 3 years later, Emperor Magnus the Pious changed Westerland from a barony to a province, and it was governed by a council of burghers rather than an elector count. He did this to avoid a war between the claimants who wanted control of the city. But hey, in the Total War continuity, we could say that maybe they found a lineage connecting our current ruler of Marienburg to the previous count who died. To the south, the next one is Axebite Pass, and in the lore, it is the only road wide enough to allow armies in and out of Bretonnia. To the west is the Dukedom of Montfort, and they guard the western approach to the pass at Castle Montfort. To the east is the Imperial garrison in a place called Helmgart that we all know. So it's likely we'll see Helmgart changed into a fort because of that lore significance. Helmgart in the lore is an Imperial fortress and a market town, since it's not only a point of defense but also a trade hub when relations are good between the Bretonnians and the Empire. Dwarfs even come by, selling ingots of silver, lead, and iron mined in the Grey Mountains nearby, so that provides a huge boon for Reikland. It's also been the site of many battles between the Empire and Bretonnia, so it's only natural that the Empire has control of this fort on their side in the form of Helmgart. Though it would be awesome if one day we saw Castle Montfort added so the Bretonnians have the same wary defenses at the border. That would provide a much more difficult campaign for a player if they wanted to expand into either side, and it would contain the AI if they wanted to do the same. For a little fun addendum, I would like to talk about the major battle that was fought here, the Battle of Montfort, which was by far the bloodiest battle ever fought between Bretonnia and the Empire. Imperator Rome and Montfort fought together to defend their lands from a general of Reikland and an army of sellswords. The battle was a bloody stalemate until Duke Cassian of Perevon arrived, and only then were the Imperials finally broken, their general slain, and their army fleeing. In pursuit of them, a small force of questing knights led by Tristan the Troubadour slaughtered them. At the end of it all, over 6,000 men lay dead, and the Bretonnians won what was considered an impossible victory, or in Total War terms, a heroic victory. Then, to the south, we have the addition of the destroyed province of Solent, with its former capital at Faldorf. But now, Solent is back to being its own province. The Golden Order, led by Gelt, is here, and so it's very likely that he'll control the fort that guards Winter Thief's Pass, providing a nice bulwark against any greenskins that might want to intrude from the south. Winter's Teeth Pass leads into the Vaults, a mountain cross range where the Grey Mountains meets the Black Mountains, the Appuccini Mountains, and Irana Mountains. There's a lot of mountains here, and it's all called the Vaults where they meet right in this area. And to the south you have, of course, Clan Angron. It's also, in lore, the point of connection between the border provinces or the border princes and the Empire. There's even some dwarf holds too that trade with the Empire through that pass, so it's very important. Then, towards the very end of our chat here, I would like to speculate a little bit and discuss potential ideas that might be able to remedy a problem, and you can let me know what you think about it too. A large issue of having forts over here in the old world is largely based around the fact that they're negated by the underway mechanic. You've got beastmen, skaven, greenskins, dwarfs, and even wood elves who all functionally have the same mechanic. They can just skip by your defenses. And so I wonder, again, how that's going to really play out now that we have forts. Sure, they might be locked behind your walls and stuck there, but you would still need an army close by, though it would be very nice if there was some matter of tweak that was added. And let's say that maybe whenever they tried to pass over where the fort is close by, they would be intercepted, but the only issue, I suppose, would be that it would be your garrison that would intercept them. Personally, I'm a big fan of revamping the entire underway system. I've always thought to myself that what would be very interesting is to have preset highways of where the underway can go. Then from that point on, you would need control of those major capitals in those provinces, and you would have to build a landmark building there or something else if you need to. And so over time, you could repair the highways, and that would provide different benefits for different factions. Clearly, if there's a bunch of rubble and evil creatures and all of that that are intruding, you have a higher chance of being intercepted by other evil creatures whenever you use it, or maybe you can't go as far. Or it could just be a replacement completely, and it teleports you over to another capital town after X amount of turns. So you would still save time, but you wouldn't be able to move anywhere that you want to. And that would be a great way to potentially rebuild the Karaz Angkor, to rebuild the Dwarven Realms. So that's really one idea that I have on what can make it interesting And that could also be adapted by other factions like Skaven and also Greenskins, though I don't see like why any faction would be able to use them. But I know in lore, it's known that Greenskins and Skaven get into that, especially Skaven. They do for sure. Skaven, I can understand being able to kind of go wherever they want. Greenskins, maybe not as much. And Beastmen, I could see that ability only being used in the woods, and I think that would be a great way to limit them. For the world roots, there are locations where it can go, but I don't think they should just be able to pop up anywhere that they please. But I think being able to go to certain places would be a better way to handle that. Because right now, as it stands, because we're going to have forts, it would again be very nice for our terrain and our strategic choke points to matter more. Sure, it might be a pain to attack as one of these evil factions, but once you have it, you have it. It's also a great way to kind of contain what is going on and potential evil expansion. But I'm sure that over time, once we see like more changes to Game 1 factions, we might see some tweaks like that, even to the Beastmen who need a lot of love, or even the Wood Elves who might need a few tweaks here and there, especially because we are getting a new Wood Elf faction over in Lord Forest over by Midland. Well, wedged between Midland and Nordland over in what's called the Drakewald Forest. Anyway, let me know your thoughts. Thank you for watching this video. I hope that you enjoyed it. Please leave a like down below and look forward to more later on. And until then, everyone,